You recording?
As am I.
How you do? How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing fine, thanks, James.
It seems to work that for some reason.
I don't know why, and for some reason we always have to say that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want
You
to.
can't say
I
anything
wouldn't want to
else.
not say it now.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just looking at this here. I just want to zoom. I got I got this Zoom set up here. I'm thinking I might get a second screen or something. Be kind of.
What do you mean?
One is the Zoom call, and then a second screen would be for facts and research.
I see. I see what you're saying. Like on your computer. Well, you could use your phone for that.
Yeah, but I think it's now
Then
that
it's less.
now we're Patreon. It's now we're making some real cash. It's like
I'm just gonna make a little level adjustment here.
okay.
Yeah, there. That's
Yeah,
That's a bit better.
How do I feel to you?
You feel great. Yeah, I just had to turn up a little bit here.
How was your run?
A little cold, but and a little muddy out in the country life here.
Yeah,
right now. But
I thought you might be snowed in, but
no, it never lasts out here. Unfortunately, it'd be a nice Christmassy feel. There's it's more like a slush kind of. I mean, we're in a coastal rainforest out here.
Oh, I love it when people say that. I love it when I'm reminded of that. That's kind of a classic Vancouver. When it's raining, we do live in a rainforest.
Yeah. Out here, it really is, though. Actually,
yeah, down there it is.
China Beat, the one if you could trail and all is
certainly
5 minutes away from where I am. So it's
kind of a Goonies energy.
Yeah.
As well.
Bit of that, yeah.
The kind of Oregon vibe.
Definitely.
Coastline.
Yeah. Take it. Yeah. We've done.
Next stop, Japan,
Dharma Bum's kind of.
Oh, yeah.
He comes up here at the end, and he gets very close. He's in the Cascade mountain range.
Is that the one? Is Dharma Bum's the one where the prologue's really good, and it's all about him being like a fire watchman in the mountains?
That happens at the very end. Is the prologue at the end?
No, I think that's the intro of the book. Is like a prologue.
Okay, no, right. Epilogue, maybe.
Certainly the epilogue, yeah.
But no, that's the very end of the book. Not to reveal the ending to anyone, but he ends his journey up at the top of a mountain in Oregon, fire watching, and it's a really, really beautiful section of writing.
Isn't he pissed that he's there?
No, he loves it. He loves it.
Maybe he's scared though.
He's so romantic about it. He's like all his dreams have come true up there. It's the most beautiful kind of piece of ecological literature that I've read. That section of him traveling with this kind of like a pack mule being led up the mountain to this cabin where he's going to live for 6 months and describing all of the natural beauty he's seeing. But there's a few passages I could read you that are just breathtaking, like the descriptions.
What about
of a river, or
Sea of Cortez, Cannery Row, kind of Steinbeck? Maybe would take.
That's definitely in the Lynn East of Eden kind of stuff. Is really
feel.
Yeah,
certainly. Kind of a pilgrim energy.
Kind of a Return of the Grievous Angel kind of energy, that opening track. I often think of that too. It is kind of that
20,000 roads.
I went down, you know what I mean? From Cheyenne to Tennessee, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. Did Gram Parsons invent the cosmic American music?
I think he coined the phrase.
Cosmic country.
No, cosmic American music, which I learned. I always call it cosmic country, but his term was cosmic American music, which I guess is just country music mixed with rock and roll, mixed with California party life.
Yeah,
I guess
kind of a little bit of the Bakersfield sound.
Yes, I was going to say it is a bit of Bakersfield sound.
Kind of honky-tonk.
Buck
kind of feel.
Owens. Buck Owens.
Merle Haggard.
Yeah, Merle Haggard.
Feel.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I can tell you too, as a young man, that stuff really spoke to me. The Cosmic American music. There was something about it that seemed very cool. Like it wasn't, because they were young guys sort of appropriating old man's music, you know, like with the nudie suits and doing all that, but they were like cool, like trippy dudes. And I just thought that kind of thing was so fun and exciting, and that they were making this kind of stiff music really loose and experimental. I mean, number one example for me being Notorious Bird Brothers is kind of where I first got into that, when they just would put like phaser on an entire mix of a country song.
Yes.
It was just really cool.
And singing country songs about doing speed.
Yeah, I know.
Artificial energy.
Yeah, which I guess like every country singer was already like doing a lot of speed and stuff like that anyway, but they weren't as explicit about it in their lyrics. So
were they all doing speed?
That was big in the country world.
Really?
In the Nashville.
Oh, yeah. Nashville scene?
Yeah. Like
Waylon.
Like, I mean, I think it was rampant in all music, but pre-cocaine, like 60s, was all speed.
Dexedrine and kind of like following on from the beats, doing the kind of like all-night drives.
Yeah.
On, what's Dwayne Allman's slide bottle?
Yeah, exactly.
What's that called? It begins with a C.
I'm not sure. I feel like that's more codeine kind of feel.
Okay.
He was more of a like pain, like numb the pain that he felt because he had the blues, you know.
Yeah. And,
but
gone too soon. Body's not even cold, man.
I know. But the country, it was just a working kind of thing, you know, like Impossible Way of Life, hitting the road in the bus, whatever, just playing all around country music all the time, and those were energetic concerts. And
I couldn't even discuss it.
No. But then, you know, the hilarious stuff is and the sad part is that everybody told all the guys that ruined their hearts with speed and booze, and then went to the doctor, and then like their friends would be like, well, you got to get off the speed. You should try cocaine, you know, because it's like a good transition for you. It's healthier, you know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that would take them down a different road, and then you wind up, whatever, Waylon in 1977 or whatever. It's not really a good scene there.
No, but all those drugs by the mid-70s had kind of distorted the kind of cultural consciousness of, you know, American youth, I think, because like nothing was achieved. Vietnam was still happening. Civil rights had kind of like not delivered the kind of emancipation maybe that was expected, and all the hippies had died, and the ones that hadn't were just now becoming increasingly paranoid. You know, Nixon, Watergate, all that kind of stuff. Satanists like Terry Melcher, who Gram Parsons lived with, I found out, which is interesting. There's actually quite a lot of dark energy around Gram.
Oh yeah, and I think that the drug stuff is interesting because, and I think you touching on the Manson murders is interesting because that's almost kind of the point that a lot of that stuff turned dark, you know? It was kind of like nothing could go wrong with the 60s idealistic dream.
Well, and Manson and Altamount. And
Altamount.
Gram was involved in both.
Mm-hmm.
He was, he was the last person. I read this amazing kind of, like, I guess it's on like an op-ed or like a kind of just like a vignette of someone who was in that scene. I guess it was for the Criterion movie about, you know, the like Gimme Shelter. And like he said that like Gram was the last person on the helicopter. Like they piled into this helicopter and he was like the last person in it, and you can see like in the movie the helicopter door closing on the seat of his Levi's.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
And he made all the rest of the band drive home.
Well,
do you know that?
Kid. No, he's
yeah,
a rich kid,
that Hillman and all the Burrito Brothers, he took the chopper, or he rented a limo or something to take him to the gig, and they all had to like drive in their cars.
Well, he was hanging out with Keith the whole
Yeah.
time, like singing like Ernest Tubb songs and like just and,
making
like,
Mick jealous.
yeah. Apparently, there's
I
a
felt
theory
that.
about there's a theory that like when they were doing Exile, Anita Pallenberg kicked. Apparently, she's the one who kicked Gram out of the chateau. You know, she was just fed up with this guy like drinking all the booze, doing all the coke, and partying with Keith. But there is another thought that Mick was jealous of
That's
the
what I think.
attention, and he actually was. It wasn't Anita Pallenberg; it was actually him.
Well,
saying,
he always said,
"I
you
don't-"
know, he was making Keith do all the too many drugs, and we couldn't get the record done.
Yeah.
You know, so it was just something needed to be done, and so I did it. But the truth is, I think he was just jealous that he didn't have his buddy. It's
Yeah.
one of those.
Yeah, and he was as good, you know, a songwriter as anyone at that time. Didn't write, he wasn't prolific enough, but he was he was up there with Keith and Mick.
He wrote
know?
some good tunes, but I have a theory about that like Hillman, like if we're talking Burrito Brothers stuff, I think Hillman actually did more of the legwork on those songs. That I think Chris Hillman, I've said this many times on the podcast, is the unsung hero of that entire scene, being a founding member of the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he wrote every single song on Gilded Palace of Sin, and he's come out since and said he's quite bitter about not getting the credit he deserves, which some might say is a reason to discredit things that he says about the writing stuff. But, you know, I sympathize. And he said, you know, songs like Sin City, he said, I had the whole song written. And then Gram just kind of came in and like added a couple of really good lines, like really good lyrics, like in that Gram way. And but you know, and then everybody thinks Gram wrote the song, you know.
But okay, yeah. I mean, there's also Graham's vocals getting replaced on "Sweetheart of the Rodeo," so it happened kind of backwards, which he never forgave McGuinn for that. Three of his lead vocals, all done, singing on a finished album, but because he was like getting paid he was getting paid salary, right? They wouldn't let him in the band properly.
McGuinn famously said, "I thought we were getting a keyboard player." Like I thought we were auditioning a keyboard player, and the next thing I knew, we had a new lead singer in the group. So you know, I see from his angle too, but I think that in the case of like Hickory Wind, which was a song that Gram wrote, and in my opinion, maybe his finest song he ever wrote, I think that McGuinn maybe could have let him have that one, you know.
It's so good that he needed to add it to Grievous Angel in the like live from Northern Quebec bluesy kind of honky tonk Bakersfield
Not
vibe.
really live.
No, of course not.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually owe you an apology, man. I realized
Oh.
because we were talking about the album that Gram Parsons references Vancouver on a few episodes back, and I said Grievous Angel, and you said no, it's the Gilded Palace of Sin.
Yeah.
And I said, no, it's not. And it was funny because I was pretty convinced, and I was listening to Grievous Angel, knowing in my mind that it was on side 2 from having the record and waiting for it. And I was like, this is so strange. But then I realized I was waiting for like songs that were on the Gilded Palace of Sin as well. And I was like, oh yeah, there's another record. And I guess it makes sense that I would get them like locked into each other in some kind of like,
Oh yeah, cross pollination.
Tons of that.
You know, little interference. It had different things took place. How much repression?
I listened to that one yesterday. Actually, really fun. Funnily, I looked show notes. Hang on.
How much?
Can you write that
repression
down?
Is there? Yep.
Just write it down.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna try and keep up with ourselves here.
Chess.
You know, things are moving. It's back and forth. It's jazz, free jazz. You know, I feel like I'm a kind of Pharoah Sanders kind of cat. kind of cat. E flat. But, sometimes we say things, I'm like, yeah, certainly.
Pharaoh, yeah.
Windswept approach.
That's
pleaded.
pretty out there, man. I mean,
but anyway,
you definitely touched on that kind of stuff before.
Pleaded looks.
You've definitely touched on kind of a Pharaoh Sanders.
You're my Alice Coltrane.
Yeah,
I kind
of think of myself sort of like early 70s monk kind of stuff.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
when he's really like, he's sort of trying to, like, piano is barely even an instrument to him anymore. You know what I mean?
It's actually more just the like space in between the notes that he's hearing.
Something like that. Yeah. Underground, that kind of era,
Yeah, I like to think of myself actually as a little bit just kind of Miles in a silent way, kind of like reinventing jazz, like I'm kind of taking the piss out of the Doors at the same time somehow.
I see you more like
Miles. Joe Jackson.
Yeah, I see you more as like Miles in the 80s when you kind of wear the wraparound sunglasses and
was in Miami Vice.
Yeah, that kind of like that's the most experimental stuff. He
plays a pimp in Miami Vice. He's really good. Plays
I gotta see
a junked out pimp.
I gotta see some.
It's probably quite easy for him to play, honestly.
Yeah. But what I wanted to continue with though is, I feel like the Manson and the Altamont stuff happened, and then all of a sudden the drugs. It was like, it kind of seems like this stuff can be really gnarly, and then a lot of people started dropping off.
Yeah,
Janice,
Elvis,
Jimmy. Elvis,
Regis.
God rest his soul. Great entertainer, Regis Philbin.
Certainly. You should learn to
but
do
then
him. You should do an impression of him. You should learn.
So I'm over. So I'm over. I'm at the party. There's a pole in front. I can't see the band. So I'm going. He always goes like this, and he's yelling. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, and then I think that Parsons' decline was kind of right around then too. He's sort of a personification of where that whole 60s dream was headed, which was right into a burning coffin.
Yeah.
In Joshua Tree.
Cap Rock. I've been there. You can go there, you can find it. And,
can you imagine the fucking gall of those guys to steal his body from the airport and burn it because one night when he was high, he said that's what he wanted to happen when he died or something?
Yeah.
What a joke.
It's kind of cool, and they didn't even get in trouble.
I think it's a bit like, at that point, maybe just let his family kind of do what they...
Well, he didn't really have any. So, he was obviously like from huge money. Like his trust fund was like, I think I was reading it was still on it by the mid-70s. It's like $250,000 a year. It would have been in today's money. From his like...
oil money, right?
I think it's like Chiquita Banana style kind of like, kind of very sleazy Florida stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad died. His mom and dad were cool, but his dad died really young. And then his mother remarried. Parsons is the last name. And she died of like cirrhosis of the liver. His stepdad had already left for another woman. So he didn't really have anyone.
Yeah.
So he was kind of out there. So, maybe like, music was his family. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and his drinking buddies. Interesting that he didn't. I wonder if there's a segue into the Hollywood vampires with him. Wasn't on that scene.
It doesn't really seem that way to me. I mean, I don't even think you hear about him hanging out with Crosby and that crowd at all.
Well, I'll tell you, actually. I mean, Crosby, obviously, there's a partial lineage because he replaced Crosby really in the Birds. Like it was Crosby left and Parsons comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I also realized that Crosby sings the high harmony on "Do Right Woman."
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
How about that?
I actually do love that harmony.
Yeah,
though.
it's so good, and of course
that's like
it's
my
him.
favorite. Yeah.
Of course it's him. Who else could sing it?
I mean, I just thought it was one of the lads in the group, but
They needed to get in that middle kind of honky, they needed to get in the big
you're
guns
right.
for
It does sound like him.
Yeah, it is totally
I
him.
love the pedal steel on that Sneaky Pete on Do Right Woman, especially.
It's really good.
It's
I was
so
a bit sad when I realized he didn't write it.
yeah.
Honestly,
it was an
I
Aretha.
kind of-
It was an Aretha song.
Yeah.
But they
So-
do it so well. Like
Yeah, it's
one of those tunes that like you can do in any style. One of those great ones. Like, I have a theory that there's certain songs like that you could do, like Do Right Woman, great country song, great soul song. It
Yeah.
would be like a great sort of standard. I could see like Sinatra doing it.
Certainly.
Like or maybe not Sinatra, maybe Barbara Streisand or something. But
yeah, that too.
there's another one, I think of like Don't Let Me Down by the
Yeah.
Beatles. Great rock and roll song. Dillard and Clark do a wonderful country version of that song. There's a lineage to Hillman there in that whole scene. Gene Clark, obviously. I'm going to put that in the show notes because that version of Don't Let Me Down is amazing.
Please do.
And I was thinking, man, imagine like Aretha Franklin or Otis Redding doing "Don't Let Me Down."
Yeah,
be like
totally.
out of control. So,
But it was
great
kind of like
songs.
a nod from the Beatles covering songs by those guys, It's
Totally,
like the Beatles
yeah.
doing like "You Really Got a Hold on Me," Ryan, "Don't Let Me Down." It's kind of
Exactly.
like it's contributing to the canon, saying
And their standards, they have that feel. Like you really got a hold on me is like a standard,
Yeah.
Like, Do Right Woman has that vibe.
Yeah.
That album is very special. Gilded Palace of Sin. That's where it all began, right? Well, I
Well,
guess Sweetheart.
Sweetheart, really. I kind of
But
got
then
on
they
a bit
got
of-
free. They got free. Him and Hillman got free from McGuinn and all that to really make. That's the penultimate cosmic country record.
the ultimate,
What's penultimate mean?
like
I'm getting
the
all mixed
second
up.
to last.
The ultimate, yeah.
Yeah, penultimate
The epilogue
and the
Yeah.
prologue.
Uh-huh.
What are you drinking?
It's like a hazy IPA. Actually, it's not really
Weird.
my style, but
Yeah, I just went
um,
for Vietnamese food on 4th. I went to Chi near your house.
it's across the street. From my house.
Vegan Vietnamese food is amazing, unbelievable. Had an amazing time there.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, had a nice green tea.
Huh.
It was good.
Little date night.
Yeah, it's
love
nice. Yeah,
I love that.
I was reading that Roger McGuinn's. I kind of got into Roger McGuinn. Oh, I saw that thing that Vic Berger posted of like Roger McGuinn playing with
saw
like
that.
a new and plugging an old computer into a new computer and playing a quiz on it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cute. He's such a little kind of soft, nerdy guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the same in like Running Down a Dream when he's just getting bullied by. Although that all feels a bit staged, that whole thing, but
To make Petty look really
yeah,
cool.
they look like
Yeah.
kind of a hero, which there's a lot of in that documentary. It's kind of like the Jeff Tweedy like kind of style, or Robbie Robertson. These guys who like controlled their own like documentaries that were like not meant to be like they were meant to be kind of fly on the wall or something, but like clearly just been written. Like Running Down a Dream, like is it Bogdanovich? It's like clearly just written by Tom Petty about himself. So this is how I want to be remembered. Like nothing bad. He never does anything bad in that fucking documentary. It's always like the label said they didn't like his song, so I started my own fucking label. And
Yeah,
like,
totally.
just like I don't take shit from anyone, and I've only ever been married to one person, and everything's been great, and I've never done anything wrong.
Same with the like Michael Jordan Last Dance. Feel.
Yeah,
like
100%.
produced by Michael Jordan.
No,
You know
never
what I
ask
mean?
him about his family.
Yeah,
Like,
and
you
just-
know,
And then it's like you see someone else's perspective
Yeah.
on what happened in the game, and then Michael gets like 5 minutes to react and
Yeah.
completely tear down everything they
Totally.
said, and then they move on.
there's
You
a cool
know?
moment in that documentary where he's talking about a game he played, and he uses the word audacity as
Yeah.
if he's just learned what the word is or means, or it's like because he overuses it in a sentence where he's like, I was out there with my audacity, and he had his Audacity. And we were like, it was like a lot of Audacity out there. It's kind of like, that's kind of the vibe, you know?
It's kind of like me with Penultimate.
Yeah, a little bit. Very similar, actually, yeah. You know, you've always reminded me of Michael Jordan, though, in your professionalism.
Well, intensity. Yeah,
intensity, or in your audacity.
Mm-hmm. Audacity, definitely. I've been told that. My favorite part in that Michael documentary is when he's talking about how the night before Game 7 or whatever, he just decided to go to Atlantic City and gamble at like 3 a.m. because he was a gambling addict. Yeah. And like, it's such a weird move. And then they lost the next game. No, it was like before Game 5 or Game 6 or something. And then him defending it, like now he's like, look, he's like, that's just what we did. He's like, that's what we did. He's like, I just wanted to go to Atlantic City, play some cards. It was not a big deal. But you know, the media, they make it all this thing. And I'm like, I'm like, I get this is your vibe, but like, it is kind of weird that you're like on camera playing blackjack at 4 a.m. before the night before you have like a massive game.
And then you lost.
Yeah, and then you lost.
I like, my favorite bit about that documentary is that Dennis Rodman needs to go fuck Carmen Electra. So he paces out, and he's just
the team just is cool with it.
Yeah, well, because like they're like totally understand. Like you got to do what you got to do. That's probably really fun.
And then he just came back, and they won like 3 championships or whatever. That's a wonderful documentary. That
it's up there. The OJ one's better, like in terms of like real kind of like sports meets politics meets culture. Like that's
Made in America.
Watch that documentary of all time.
Oh, yeah. Me and Luke watched that in L.A., cool. The whole thing. It was awesome.
That's like a Rocky style thing to watch where you like newspaper up the windows. And you just, we're just sat here until the end.
That's my the blackout the windows thing is my Scorsese joke because he famously said when he was decided to be a filmmaker that he blacked out his windows like like black duct tape and just got like a pound of cocaine and copies of every single classic film, Italian film, everything. And he said he didn't leave his house for like a month and just
when he was with Robbie. Were they living together?
No, this was like in the 60s, like before he even made a movie. He was like, this is what I knew if I won, I had the skill, but I needed to just watch every movie and like study it. So he's like, so I taped out my windows, just bought a fucking pile of cocaine. And I guess it worked for him, yeah. Then he made like Taxi Driver or something. I don't know. Mean Streets.
Yeah, Mean Streets, I guess.
I have something I wanted to say about the Gram Parsons record, which is kind of interesting, which is that we're doing it actually because a friend of the pod, Sam Hammond, our friend requested it, and he's had a bit of a rough week, so we thought we'd do it for him. And but it made me think, I've known a lot of English people who love Gram Parsons.
Yeah.
And love that record in particular. And when he said it, and then you've talked to me about it before, and you're like, I really have listened to it a lot. And I had a coworker at Zulu Records who I remember like one day doing like a Seinfeld where I put on Grievous Angel.
Yeah.
And he was kind of into more electronic music at the time, but then like it came on, you know, and he kind of did one of these stares where he was just like it took him somewhere, you know? And I wondered if there was any kind of, that's just coincidental, or if there's some kind of, the cowboy thing kind of like spoke to you guys across the pond,
kind of like probably the iconography of as much as the songs. Although like, I do think that he's like the most convincing singer of sad songs. You know, like
great voice he's got.
Yeah, but I think probably like it's the whole like aesthetic of Gram, you know, is really cool. Like, and it's like, you know, the nudie suits with like LSD things like carved into them, and like just kind of very, you know, what's the place in the Salton Sea, the mountain there, the folk monument that people go to? I've been there. You know, and it's kind of like painted like Alice in Wonderland or whatever out there, or Through the Looking Glass, it's Magic Mountain or whatever. And like the Integratron, you know, that kind of zone.
Right.
You know, Joshua Tree, Mojave. He just kind of like had the look as well. He'd like, kind of he nailed the look, like the aesthetic of it, and also had songs to back it up, so you could get
Nailed the
into it.
look, the way that young men will fall in love with a male singer. You know, like that, in the way that like he's young and handsome. There's a bit of a you idolize, and like, you know, it's like a David Gilmour kind of thing. Like,
Sure,
you
yeah,
kind of
men
have
do
crushes. You
men
have
do
crushes.
on Gilmore for sure.
Yeah, and Graham Parsons, like I did, you know, like wanted to be him or something.
I remember being
like,
disappointed when I found out he had a big inheritance and was loaded, and it was all fake, as if it could have been, as if anything can be real, you know, like really. But it was a bit disappointing. But
that he wasn't a real.
What it's like, kind of like CCR. It's like the CCR thing. Where you're like, they're not like singing about where they're from, and there's but you know, you grow to realize that is what makes it so good. Is like, you know, that these people are doing what Dylan did, or what like David Bowie did. They're creating these identities like that are half rooted maybe in their own, you know, like realities or grounded in it, but are also aspirational. And that like is a good lesson to learn, because if you don't realize that, you kind of get lost in this idea of authenticity being like exactly who you are, whereas, you know, that'll choke the life out of you creatively if you're unwilling to kind of take a step into other identities or kind of other ideas or idealize things, because you wouldn't get music like Grievous Angel, because it isn't just country music, you know. I remember people saying, I remember my friend Rob saying about the one who turned me onto this record when I was living in England and dressing like, you know, definitely like kind of had cowboy boots and stuff, which is, you know, funny. I think that Sam probably, his, you know, relationship with it's similar, where it's kind of aspirational on our part, but, you know, getting, I mean, you got to imagine us walking around Manchester in the rain in like tight jeans and cowboy boots and ponchos. I mean,
I know.
Like, you know, you can't really do that, I don't think. But I remember like Rob saying, you know, people say things to you and it's like a really hot take that I've always stuck. This record, I've always like associated this with this record. Like, this is the take on this record, is like, he was saying like, you know, like Emmylou, like it's her record. Like, she whipped him into shape. And I always thought that. So it's kind of true.
Yeah. I was waiting to get into her, because when I listened to it today, I was most impressed with her of anything on the record.
Sure. Yeah.
Her harmonies.
It's insane. They're both singing leads, aren't they, the whole time?
And just that she, you know, he's singing the tunes, and every harmonic decision she makes is the right one. Because there's different ways you can go. You know, I like singing harmony, and she could have gone up. It's only two parts. So, but when she goes down and kind of matches him, and then kind of hangs out on the same note when he moves around, like, it's just all these really, really cool decisions as a singer.
And it's psychedelic.
And she's just feeling it too. And her voice is amazing. Like, Hearts on Fire kills me.
Oh, yeah.
And Love Hurts is a real highlight on the record, too. Yeah. That duet, you know?
And they're panned left and right. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. You know that I did I got a little story for you, buddy.
I can't wait.
So, you remember there was a Battle of the Bands called Shindig in Vancouver?
Yeah. It was at the Railway Club, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'll have you know that I'm the only person who's ever won it 2 years in a row with different groups. My old band Victoria won 1 year.
I remember that band. I actually kind of forgot you were in that band.
Yeah.
Was that kind of like accidentally a like reference to Hot Heat and the fact that you were from Victoria at the same time, by like kind of doing it, or was just the double name thing kind of big then? Or like Mother?
It was kind of big then. I didn't come up with it, and I think we really liked the Kinks. We liked that song.
What about Vincat? Were they there?
Vincat were part of the scene. They were younger, but yeah, we played
with them
too. Shapes and Sizes.
They got signed to a label. They got big nearly for a second.
They did.
Were you pissed at that? Did you kind of have a feeling of like resentment? Because, you know, like when you're younger, that's kind of how you feel about these things. I remember I had friends who got successful, and it used to burn me inside. at the time, at like 20
that
years
came
old.
a bit later for me. I was still very optimistic that I was headed in the right direction no matter what I did. So I didn't have that sort of resentment kind of stuff came a bit later when things weren't moving at the speed I wanted them to with my career, or whatever it was. But no, so Victoria also winning Shindig, it should be known, is famously a curse. The winning bands, no band has ever gone on to be very successful, whereas bands who have come second and third, many of them have, like the New Pornographers.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they came like third one year or something, I think. It was something like other bands have too.
And so let's just clarify here, you don't like win anything other than...
You win 2 days of recording time at the Hive studio.
With Colin?
With Colin.
Okay, that's a pretty good prize, actually. That's like $1,000 cash prize.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And you won also something else. It was like distribution. I don't know. There was some kind
of... Like a Mint Records connection, maybe?
Some kind of thing like that. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. So won that year, made some music at the Hive, never came out, band broke up. Curse worked. Next year, I was playing in this band called Fanshawe. With
what's her
Olivia.
name?
Olivia was her name. Very talented singer-songwriter.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And we had a band, and the bass player, his name was Shane, and there was like I don't know, French horn player or something. I was the drummer in that too. I was drummer in both bands.
Yeah.
And then, but
kinda
I
like
was...
before you went like kind of...
But here, exactly, James. See, I had something else I was wanting to do, and no one was letting me.
Kind of Phil Collins style.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And so what happened was we won the first couple of rounds. You had to win 4 rounds or something, Fanshawe. And then the whole band quit. Everybody quit.
Wow.
The bass player, the keyboard player.
Why do you think that happened?
They just didn't want to do it anymore. They didn't want to play music or something. Like they were kind of like, or somebody was busy and couldn't do the show. So they were like, everyone else was like, we're not into it. So I said to Liv, the singer, I sort of saw this and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll get up and I'll play the guitar with you.
Kind of like
and
Gram switching from
we'll
piano.
do like a Gram. I said it. We'll do like a Gram and Emmylou thing.
Yeah.
And that'll be the show. We'll go to the third round. And we did Love Hurts.
Interesting.
And because I was super into that record.
Okay.
And we did it. We won the next round. And then we won the next round. And we won the whole fucking thing. Just the two of us.
And what did you do? What did you do in the final?
We did Love Hurts. We did the same set. We just did Hurts.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it's like a week later or whatever.
Okay. Was it at the Railway Club?
Yeah. And here's the kicker of the story.
Yeah.
Was that we did Love Hurts to close it each time, and we won. And that night we were against a band called the Oregon Trail.
The Oregon Trail?
No, they were called the
Oregon,
which featured a bushy-haired, burly man in jeans and a belt buckle and a cowboy shirt, who was at the back of the bar with a pint of beer, blown away by our Gram and Emmylou cover of Love Hurts, that he had to approach me after the show and tell me how much he liked it, and his name was Mike Kamazchuk.
That's amazing.
And we met that night, and that's why we started the Shilohs. We decided to start a band that night.
Of course, the Shilohs being the name of Graham Parsons' first band.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was the guy who, that guy in the Railway Club who used to dress like he'd seen Waterworld and it had changed his life? He'd wear like chains and kind of netting, webbing and stuff. He'd sit at the back bar there. Was he there that night?
I don't, but there's probably a lot of characters like this I've sort of blocked out.
He was kind of older, and he just had it's like kind of like how people watch The Matrix and like got into like that like long leather kind of sex rave goth cyber
kind of thing.
Rave thing, and like wrap around Oakley's in like a leather jacket and like dreads, white dreads, and then there's also like. Obviously,
that
like
makes
the Johnny
sense.
Depp Pirates of the Caribbean, like there's always a guy in your neighborhood who takes that. We've already discussed that. There's a guy who's like Jack Sparrow. Like, he used to be, maybe he was more of a like earlier Johnny Depp at one point, kind of 21 Jump Street vibe. and like decided to switch it up and go like Jack Sparrow. So this guy was like the Waterworld version of that. He'd seen it. He like one of the smokers. The smokers in that, the guys on the jet
It wasn't
skis.
even a big movie though, which is what's
It was
hilarious
the most
to me. But
expensive movie of all time at the time, though, wasn't it?
But like it bombed, right?
Underrated. It's good.
I'll see it again. I'd like to see it again.
With Emmylou, though, that's cool about Mike. That story's great. There's some beef between Emmylou and Parsons' widow, Gretchen.
Oh.
Apparently, Gretchen had never cared for Emmylou Harris's relationship with her husband and removed Emmylou Harris from the front cover of the album, Grievous Angel, which was originally credited to Gram Parsons with Emmylou Harris. And it featured a photo of the two of them. And she relegated, because this is like in the estate, she relegated Emmylou to a credit on the back cover. And also, Gretchen removed the original title track, Sleepless Nights, because she didn't care for the way they sung at each other.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's...
which was another album of Graham's, like maybe posthumous, Sleepless Nights, live stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. So...
I mean, you got to imagine there was some chemistry there with that music they were making.
You can feel the tension.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear it.
Plus, Emmylou is a very, very attractive woman.
And
at that time. And Graham,
was a very attractive man. I mean, Gretchen was a young woman who was hanging out at the Stones and stuff with him. Like they got married in London during the Exile on Main Street kind of sessions. They went from France to London and got married. But apparently, like the Stones didn't care for her.
Was she the one who was with Graham when he OD'd?
Yeah,
and died.
Yeah.
And do you know the story that
I think he was already shacked up with someone else as well at the time, but
that he OD'd and whoever he was with, the woman had heard that if you shove an ice cube up somebody's ass, they'll come back from. It's a true story. And so she shoved an ice cube up his ass, and he came back to life and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And then died again. So those were his last words.
Wild Horses is written about him.
Really?
The song, yeah, it's about him. Apparently.
I didn't know
that until I went on Wikipedia yesterday and it said Wild Horses is written about him. It says, and you think about the lyrics, Wild horses couldn't drive me away. Wild horses will ride them someday. Kind of unable to choose between devils and angels. That's what someone wrote in a YouTube comment I saw. He broke the rules and welcomed them or something. Something people.
Oh, man. I don't know, I don't know. That could be true, but I remember Graham talking about how Keith had allowed him to cover the song, which they do on, I believe, Burrito Deluxe or something.
Which isn't very
also, good. Wicked record. Oh,
Burrito Deluxe?
So good.
The one they threw together real quick?
That's, I think, GP's the one they threw together real quick, like his first solo record. But Burrito Deluxe is a really awesome record. Like Older Guys, some of those songs are so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. To me, it's just a follow-up to Gilded Palace, but like a little bit more rockin' and stuff. But yeah, they
got Lazy Days on Lazy Day.
Yeah.
That's a ripping song.
Oh yeah,
it's good at Altamount too.
Yeah, and it's got like White Line Fever and that kind of stuff. Like it's a little darker, but like more rock and roll. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Worth a listen again. I'm sure you dig it. GP though is his first solo album that they totally threw together because he was a mess in the studio. But I listened to it today, and there's a song on it called "She."
Okay.
That is, it's so good, man. Like, and because Graham's hardly could sing it, like his vocal is really barely like take worthy.
Yeah.
But something about it really got to me, and I think it's maybe one of my favorite songs of his.
Okay, well, throw it in the notes, man.
Yep, got it.
I mean, I was reading it about because, like I said, I was kind of on a McGuinn kick, and I read that originally he conceived Because he was kind of the band leader in the Byrds, right?
Yeah.
I thought this is interesting. Roger McGuinn originally conceived "Sweetheart of the Rodeo." It sounds like a coked out like vibe as a double album and it was going to be the history of American popular music. So it was going to begin with bluegrass and country, then move kind of through country and western to jazz, rhythm and blues, then to rock music, before finally ending with the most advanced form of music at the time, electronic music.
Oh my God!
So
wow.
they got stuck on the first bit of that and never went past it.
Or like Chris Hillman was just like, why don't we just make a country record? And
yeah, maybe.
That's hilarious, though.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear
I found
that.
some great. I did a little deep dive. The internet's great. I found that like some, people think the funny things that people think are like curious, like tidbits, like before Parsons' departure from the Byrds, he had just accompanied Mick Jagger and Keith Richards to Stonehenge, along with McGuinn and Hillman, and just wondering whether that. And then when he moved back, he immediately moved in with Terry Melcher. So
amazing,
the occult.
Yeah, and like great Spinal Tap outtake. That one is.
Oh yeah,
deleted scene. No, I think that there's something to what we were saying about the jealousy of Mick. That I think there's more stuff like this in rock history than people know. But like I wonder, they'll talk about all that other stuff. But I wonder if like Paul McCartney was jealous of Harry Nilsson and John Lennon's relationship. Or
yeah, I don't think he was given the opportunity to be jealous. But honestly, everything I think I knew about the Beatles has changed because of that 5-minute Peter Jackson kind of freebie kind of teaser for the Get Back documentary, which
sneak peek.
I've never seen them happy before.
Yeah.
I had tears in my eyes, like watching them all. The chemistry.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
John and Paul like waltzing together and stuff. It was just beautiful. I couldn't handle it almost.
I can't wait to watch that. I'm
oh
desperate.
my God. It was supposed to come out in September. I had it all. I got the black duct tape out.
Okay.
I had a jumbo bottle of Jose Cuervo.
You've got pretty big windows too in your place.
Yeah, you can go to Home Depot. You can get anything you want. I get some tar paper maybe. Black tar paper, that kind of thing.
Just
whatever
loads of copies of the unread
whatever
copies of the Georgia
takes.
Strait.
Exactly. From around the era when I was making music.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had it all set to go. Me and Mike actually had a big plan. So now we'll have you over too, and it's kind of a
God
thing.
willing, vaccine willing.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't even know when it's out, but it's one of those things like either that or we could go to kind of like the Holiday Court Motel on Kingsway.
That'd be cool.
And just get a room and kind of you grab the mattress off the bed and you put it up against
kind of like the end of LA Confidential. Kind of
exactly. You put it up against the door and you just kind of say...
They're going to have to shoot us out of this room.
Exactly, yeah. And then you really hit rock bottom in there for about 2 weeks and just watch the Get Back over and over and kind of figure out once and for all, what happened.
Yeah.
What's the secret? That's what I want to know,
I tell you, in that little 5-minute bit, I was, they like at one point, like they're in the control booth, like the control room.
And I thought you were talking about my 5-minute bit there.
No. They're in the control room, like working. They've got the, the tape hop. It's probably Alan Parsons. He's kind of all like Leckie or something, John Leckie.
Ken Scott, maybe.
And I was paying real close attention to how hot those VU meters were.
So was I.
I was like, okay, interesting. They're running it pretty much on, like they're not redlining. They're running it at 0. Which it was interesting. It was
they were pretty hot though.
It was pretty hot. It was fizzy, considering that's where they're getting all their. That's where the gain structure is. So I was paying attention. I
saw that too, buddy.
I went back a couple of times and took another look and was wondering, if there's anything I can do, or can learn production wise from Well, there's a hell of a lot you can learn
from the Beatles.
Yeah.
Tough to
Tough to say.
Tough to say whether there's anything to learn from that. I mean, maybe like the like what kind of a bass to buy.
Well, they're all swapping instruments on
I
that
know.
teaser. It's amazing.
John played that 6-string bass a lot in those sessions. It was a Fender 6-string bass.
Really?
It was just like a guitar. Yeah, George too. They used it a ton on Let It Be.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I liked seeing like Yoko and Linda kind of hanging out in the one shot.
Everyone's smiling. And
Yeah,
I
it's
liked it
great.
that Yoko was hypnotizing John. You can like see it in this like the clip. He's just staring at him from like 6 inches away.
Maybe for the best. Maybe that's why Abbey Road's so good. Like maybe, and Bleecker had a good theory about that too. That her hypnotism in the 70s caused him to record Double Fantasy, which is a wonderful album.
Yeah,
like
Bleecker was a big fan, big Yoko guy.
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone
I
knows
like
that.
Yoko. I like Yoko too. I'm just basing this on what I've read. And
I
it's
saw
kind of like what I read online about Eric Clapton all the time. Like I take it to be 100% fact. I don't know about you.
Well, it's just getting darker and darker. There's just more names. There's just more names all the time.
Darker and darker, and
I'm wondering
our
about
responsibilities are getting stronger and stronger.
Well, I was reading about B.B. King, and that after he'd made the Riding with the King record with Eric
where
Clapton,
he's not wearing his seatbelt in the back seat.
Well, that's just points to things that have happened prior. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone that's Dwayne Allman, and that's the attempted assassination of Robbie Robertson.
Just sit back. Just sit back there, baby. No need. I'm an excellent driver. I'm an excellent driver.
But with B.B. King, he died, but his family don't believe the verdict of the autopsy. So there is it's shrouded in mystery. And
well, beyond that, I started to do a little bit of research myself. I was digging really deep late into the night. I had papers everywhere strewn all around.
Kind of like you were like, I don't know, like Find You in the Dark, kind of Golden State Killer, like
kind of a Maltese Falcon kind of thing.
Oh, more of a noir. Yeah, full noir.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah. And a name crossed my desk.
Poirot, maybe.
Prince.
Well, Prince is interesting for sure.
And I thought about the concert for George.
Interesting.
When Prince performs While My Guitar Gently Weeps and
knocks it out the park.
destroys Clapton's solo. Completely outshines him. And that's not sitting well with Eric.
No.
And then, lo and behold, a few years later...
He's got addicted to the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We know who used to
classic.
like that. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
I mean, what did he say recently? Would you rather be a slave than...
Would you rather be a free man or a slave?
Yeah. And I'm just out here trying to play the blues. Give people
For
what
my
they want.
friends.
For my friends.
For my friends.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're all desperate to hear him.
Need to hear it.
Nobody's heard enough bluesing from Clapton,
David Crosby was asked about all of this stuff, with Van and Eric, and he said, Van Morrison's an ass, but I didn't expect this from Clapton. And
wow.
He said, it's dumb, it's childish, and Masks and Lockdown are how you beat this. Van is kind of a dick, but I'm surprised at Eric. And then a guy called John Mutchler who says, when is Skunk Baxter coming out with an anti-lockdown and mask song? And then there's kind of a thread here because someone has a problem because David Crosby says, like, I was under the impression that he was not like that. He was so they kind of get into it a bit, and then there's a Skunk fan here, could be a bot, who says, interested to know if you're still able to listen to the Steely Dan records you say you like so much with him on them. So kind of shots fired.
I like that.
And then David Crosby says, "You definitely have the wrong impression of me and him. He's a dummy and he can't shoot a pistol for shit." And then,
What?
yeah, that's just the start. I met him. He's an ass, politically somewhere to the right of Attila the Hun.
Wow.
Yeah. So, he's
Can't
fighting
shoot a
good
pistol
fight.
worth of shit? What is that?
I think it's like there's a little bit of beef, about, it's kind of like the Nugent world, like the kind of like freedom and liberty.
Crosby's a
It's
gun
like,
guy, right?
well, I guess he's just saying like, I'm not even a gun guy, but if I was, I'd still be able to shoot better than Skunk,
He was a gun guy.
Well,
he
I mean,
always carried a
he
gun.
likes having a pistol around. Colt, I think, right?
Yeah.
There's one he
You've heard
shoots
that-
himself in the head on the back of, if I can only remember my name,
Right.
I think.
Yeah, still haven't seen that documentary. I've seen the Gram one,
No,
though.
the
Gram one's
documentary-
useless.
The documentary is not called If I Can Only Remember My Name. That's the name of the album. The documentary is called Remember My Name.
Right.
Yeah.
He's trying to, it's for posterity.
Yeah, it's like a legacy kind of vanity project or something. You gotta wonder about all these people. So what's your Christmas looking like next
I don't
few
need
days?
to. I don't need to wonder. I need to know the answer to what I consider myself a bit of a rock and roll detective.
Yeah.
I'm done wondering. That's to me what this podcast is all about. No more wondering. I want answers, and I'm going to do the research required to get those answers. With the help of our patrons and our listeners and you, James,
Yeah.
we will get to the bottom of what the hell was going on with every goddamn rock star in history.
Well, we've got a lot of time. I mean, I was
Yep.
talking to my dad, and he listened to an episode of this podcast, and he clearly didn't quite get it all because he said we should do the Killer's Hot Fuss on the next episode. And I said, I don't think we'll be doing that. And he said, see, this is the problem with you, son. I knew you'd be kind of arrogant about it. And I was like, well, it's not a classic rock record. Maybe we'll do it like on episode 4000 when there's no records left, or like
That's
when we're
kinda-
into the sort of early 2000s, like, angular guitar world. But until
It's
that
kind of
point-
funny. That's kind of an anti-dad approach he took to that. Like he doesn't want us to. Maybe your dad's actually hipper than us. And
He
we're-
always listened to like cool, he always listened to music and still does. And he like listens to like things that are famous bands at the time. Like, so it's like he'll move with the times. So like his bands, he likes Death Cab and stuff like that, the Shins. And I mean, there's not really any bands anymore, but maybe he likes Tame Impala or something. Maybe.
I remember,
But he also
going-
liked Queen, or his favorite band, maybe, or something. I don't know. He just
Well,
like
that's good.
whatever's big at the time.
I remember going to see Death Cab for Cutie a few years ago at like Rifflandia in Victoria, like the festival.
Yeah.
And it was the last. This is what people told me, that it was the last ever show with the original guitarist.
Chris Waller.
Right. And I remember being out in the crowd and like all these people kind of giving me this look. They were like,
This is
like a historic
yeah.
concert.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
remember thinking
Local
to myself,
heroes, kind of.
what a crock of shit.
Well, you also have personal beef with Ben Gibbard because obviously you had such a big crush on Zoe Deschanel, and that he kind of, in many ways, stole her from you.
I
know.
remember that.
Yeah, with the mixtape incident.
No. You're not getting me on this one. But I remember when he started dating her, and maybe you're right. It might have played something.
Maybe it
into
played
it.
a role in you
Because I
not
had
liking any of his records after Plans.
Yeah, because clearly before I was in love with Zoe Deschanel, I was obviously a huge Death Cab for Cutie fan.
Yeah, like Songs for Airplanes. And
Oh, yeah.
we have
all
the
that
facts
stuff.
and we're voting yes. I think that's the other one.
Postal
Service.
the postman or whatever they're
Please, Mr. Postman service.
all that fucking shit. I love
such
that
great
stuff.
heights. Fuck, I was listening to something the other day and I was like really enjoying it, and then I realized that the singer sounded like Ben Gibbard and it was a woman. I don't remember what it is, but I sure won't be listening to it again. It's certainly no Gram Parsons, let me tell you.
I'll probably get into a lot of those albums when I'm your dad's age.
Yeah.
I'll go through my Death Cab phase.
Yeah,
when I'm
Bright
like
Eyes.
60. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Kind of like the softer side of the indie dance party kind of era.
I remember going to places and dancing to that Postal Service stuff.
Oh, Such Great Heights, of course.
Yeah, that was a big jam.
That was a great
Peter,
one.
Bjorn, and John.
Yeah, Young Folks. That was a good one. Yeah. Justice.
That was actually kind of dancey, right?
Yeah, like an LCD sound system.
Yeah, that was kind of. Whereas like Peter, Bjorn, and John, and like it was like wuss
rock. Yeah. Scandinavian wuss rock.
Yeah,
I remember the Postal Service record. It being like their whole thing was like they'd made it like online. You know, like they'd sent each other stuff. Like it was just some guy. Like that's why they were called. It's a clever name. You know. You know, and they'd made it like as a project, a collaborative project, kind of like
sort
this.
of. Kind of predating the COVID style of recording.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
so many of our heroes now use.
Maybe
like
Ben Gibbard. Zoe Deschanel doesn't even make music anymore.
I went into Long McQuaid today.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pick something up that I needed to rent something.
What were you renting? A capo or something?
I was essentially just renting a SM57 microphone.
For a snare or something?
No, just like I didn't have a good. I brought my amp and guitar and I wanted to record some guitar for something, and I just didn't have like a 57 to do. You know what I mean?
Use that SM7 though.
Yeah, I know, but I was just like, in case I didn't like it or something.
Okay. And sometimes you're just trying to find someone to fucking do, honestly, aren't you?
It was on my way home, and I just kind of wanted to go in there too and see what happens.
I mean, it's kind of like a fun place to go.
They had some used gear, like they had like some Vintex in there that were like I kind of wanted to like look around what they had.
Some 500 series stuff.
Yeah, and they had some stuff.
Vincats in there.
The Vincats, yeah, that's what they call them in Victoria.
Yeah,
but it's embarrassing that the people listening to this podcast know now that I don't own an SM57. It's a real joke.
Well,
but anyway,
I've got 3 if you want to borrow one, pal.
I know I didn't bring one, but anyway, the thing was, the guy in the back was real cool Long McQuaid guy. You know, he's really acting very cool. He spoke very slowly. He operated the computer very slowly.
Interesting.
And he was talking, and I said,
kind of too busy listening to the key of the music that the guy was playing in. E flat. Interesting choice for this solo.
Yeah. And I said to him, "Have you listened to the new McCartney album?" I kind of wanted his take on it.
Hot take, I'm sure.
And he was like, what he said to me was, "Yeah, I listened to it the night it came out." I was like,
nice.
Cool, man. Like, right on. Like,
right on, brother.
You should be proud.
Right on.
And then I said to him, yeah, like, it was kind of weird. I thought, but he's like, I really liked it. He's like, definitely liked it more than Egypt Station. But he's like, but I'm a big McCartney guy.
Yeah.
He was about my age,
Yeah.
He's like, I'm a big McCartney fan. And I was like, well, yeah, me too. But I could tell in his eyes that he thought he was a much bigger McCartney fan than me.
Did you get into it? Did you fire back with...
I did. Okay. I did indeed, James. So what I said to him was, I said, I was just a little disappointed that to find out from my good friend James that actually it wasn't just Paul during lockdown doing all the recording and doing all the work
like
himself.
A la 1 and 2.
Exactly. I said, apparently he had like an engineer and a mixer and
a team.
A team. And I kind of was hoping, in the spirit of McCartney 1 and 2, that he would have just kind of tinkered away and got it done himself.
Yeah.
And you know what he said to me? He said, yeah, man, well, you know what? There's always someone on the other end.
Wow. Don't really know what that means, but...
Me neither, but I think he was trying to be kind of prophetic or something.
I just don't imagine Paul McCartney would have done the Pro Tools work.
No,
I
and
just
I
can't
think he was
see him
trying
there.
to say that even in the other ones, somebody, eventually they master, they mix it. But I don't think he really got what I was trying to say. Like the whole point is, I just wanted to Paul to plug straight into the tape machine,
Totally.
and just spend his own money, press it up, and like put it. You know what I mean? It would have been.
It's kind of a
wicked.
slog, that record. I was kind of really excited to do a full episode on it, but it's kind of a slog. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit next time.
Yep. Anyway.
Well, this is our last episode before Christmas. So, Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Special Merry Christmas to Lindsay Thornton, new patron. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time and your ears. And have a wonderful day, a safe time. And, we'll see you on the Sunday afterwards. And then for the rest of time, Memorial 2021. Going to be a big year for the Impossible Way of Life podcast.
We plan, if at all possible, to do a lot of traveling and podcasting from some of our favorite places that we've talked about a lot on the podcast.
Yeah, like Cap Rock in the Joshua Tree at Gram Parsons,
Miami
Coffee.
Beach, you know,
Nugent Energy.
Yeah, Notting Hill.
Sure, Notting Hill, yeah. Just at
St. John's Wood.
St. John's Wood, Maida Vale, that kind of feel, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. And, because it's Christmas, I've made a Christmas playlist. Why don't we include the link on tonight's episode, James?
Do it.
Just
yeah, send it to me when you send your audio.
Festive flavor.
I need a beer. It's nearly 7 o'clock here.
Okay. Bye.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.